I played dirty to get Charles Harrison to marry me. Every time he goes into a rut, his hatred for me peaks. Charles and I have a 100% pheromone compatibility match. But he doesn't love me. He loves a B-list actor with Oscar-worthy acting skills. He once said, "Only Joseph is worthy of carrying my child." Yet when I miscarried, he cried until his eyes were bloodshot, begging for my forgiveness. I looked at him calmly and said, "Charles, just let me go. My husband has 2 phones. One for me and one for his lover. After we're intimate, that second phone always rings, and Charles pulls away immediately. The bed goes cold in an instant." I watched his gentle profile under the moonlight and let out a mocking laugh. Ever since I became a house husband, it feels like I have no secrets. Every move I make is monitored by Charles and his lover. Like right now, they think I'm asleep, so they've started their shameless flirting. I've met his lover. His name is Joseph, a very young, very beautiful Omega actor. Joseph is always humble about his acting, but in my eyes, he deserves an Academy Award. "Mr. Harrison, did your wife force you again?" His voice was sweet and delicate, laced with a heartache that struck right at Charles's core. I could feel the disgust in Charles's eyes as he glanced at me. Every second I spend with him makes me sick. Sure enough, he hated my guts. I turned on my side, letting tears soak the pillowcase. If I had a choice, I would have wanted a normal start. With him, not a marriage built on pheromone blackmail. But I had no choice. If I hadn't married him, my parents and my sister would have died in prison, wrongly accused. "Seth, stop pretending. I know you're awake." His voice cut through the air, cold and sudden. Charles stood by the window, his face dark, looking down at me with contempt. "You did this on purpose, didn't you?" "What?" I didn't understand what he was talking about. Then he said, "Joseph was just rushed to the hospital." "Want to tell me why?" My mind went blank. A few seconds later, I found my voice. "I just had coffee with him yesterday. He was laughing and chatting when we met. He even smiled and offered to walk me out when we finished." Why would he try to kill himself? "Joseph has depression. Didn't you know?" "Joseph has depression?" I didn't know. At the very least, I couldn't tell. Charles's face was black as thunder as he started getting dressed. I hurriedly asked, "Where are you going?" "To take care of Joseph." He walked to the door, then stopped as if remembering something. He turned around, his voice low and commanding. "Come to the hospital with me. You're going to apologize to Joseph." I've been in medicine for 10 years, specializing in psychiatry. My professional experience told me Joseph definitely did not have depression. I didn't move. It wasn't my fault. He had no right to demand an apology. Seeing I wasn't moving, Charles's voice dropped, carrying a warning. "Seth, think about your family." An hour later, Charles and I arrived at Joseph's hospital room. He lay in bed, looking frail and sickly. His small face was drained of color, and his eyes, usually bright, were dull until he saw Charles. Then they lit up. I always thought Joseph had eyes like a deer, shimmering and wet. Just like his physique, he looked pitiful, provoking a strong desire in people to protect him. "Mr. Harrison, you came." Joseph didn't even look at me. The moment Charles appeared, his gaze was glued to him, and Charles responded with equal warmth. The cloying, sweet scent of honey pheromones and the sharp, cold scent of pine intertwined shamelessly right in front of me. Only Charles could act so self-righteous, tangling with someone else right in front of his wife, wearing that stoic face. I mocked myself silently, covering my heating gland, trying to suppress my own scent, faint and scentless as a snowflake. What happened that one time was actually beyond my expectations. 15 years ago, to save Charles, my gland was cut out. The doctors said I wouldn't present, but at 18 I did. I became a mutated Omega. My pheromones were naturally weaker than everyone else's. You couldn't even detect them unless you focused. Because of this, my fertility was nearly zero. Yet, this imperfect body somehow had a 100% compatibility match with Charles. That was why, that one time, Charles not marked me for life. The Harrison family had been struggling to find a suitable Omega. They knew I loved Charles, so even though they knew my fertility was low, they held on to a sliver of hope and forced Charles to marry me. Since then, whenever Charles releases his pheromones, I react. Looking at my face reminds him of that forced union, fueling his deep hatred for me. "Mr. Harrison, I just got drunk and accidentally cut my wrist. My agent blew it out of proportion and insisted on sending me to the hospital. I'm so sorry to trouble you and Seth. Joseph leaned weakly into Charles's embrace, looking at me with an apologetic expression. If it weren't for him, you wouldn't have gotten drunk. He needed to come. Charles shot me a cold glare, then turned back to wipe Joseph's tears with infinite tenderness. He had never treated me like that. 3 years of marriage had been nothing but endless humiliation and cold violence. Mr. Harrison, don't blame Seth. This is my own issue. It has nothing to do with him. Joseph, he's not as good as you think. Charles cut off Joseph's explanation. Pursed my lips. Apologize. Charles spoke suddenly, his distant gaze piercing through me. It was so cold I shivered. No name, no title. Like ordering a servant. I clenched my fingers, my heart aching uncontrollably. I took a deep breath. I'm sorry. I didn't know you had depression. Can I go now? Charles frowned, looking me up and down before tossing me a charitable, I walked quickly out of the ward, standing at the intersection, unsure where to go. Before long, a familiar Porsche pulled up in front of me. I got in and gave my routine report on our sex life. He used protection. I took the pill, too. The Harrison family was desperate for me to carry Charles's child, while Charles was desperate to prevent it. I had thought about using a child to tie Charles down, but I could only let him use condoms and take the pills right in front of his face. You have 1 month left. Don't disappoint me. Yes. I took a cab back to the villa. Charles hadn't come back yet, so I turned on the TV and took out some of his clothes to build a nest. My heat was approaching, and with the added stress from Charles, my gland was getting hotter and hotter. The Harrisons had given me a pill. Taking it would force me into heat immediately. Even with my broken body, thanks to our 100% compatibility, no matter how much Charles hated me or how angry he would bow to the pheromones. The angrier he was, the rougher he would be. But that would increase the chances of conception. Whether I lived or died didn't matter anymore. I followed the family's orders and entered my sensitive period, but Charles didn't come home all night. When I called him, all I heard was the sound of Joseph whimpering softly. I froze. Even my messy, sweat-soaked clothes seemed to mock me. I laughed through my tears. A strong sense of suffocation jerked me awake. Charles was on top of me, one hand choking my neck, the other pinning my wrist. Seth, have I been too gentle with you? Did you forget your place? Take a good look. I am your man. Don't go into heat every time you see another guy. He cursed at me again because of the photos from the family. Ever since the Harrisons learned that Charles would fly into a rage, and subsequently vent that rage physically, whenever he saw me getting too close to other men, they started using photoshopped images to provoke him, hoping to increase the chances of conception. Felt like my body was being sliced in half. It hurt too much to speak. Not that there was anything to say. He wouldn't believe me anyway. I don't know how much time passed. He dressed with a look of disgust and forced a contraceptive pill down my throat. You aren't worthy of carrying my child yet. He threw the cold words at me and left for good. I crawled pitifully to the bathroom, stuck my fingers down my throat, and forced the pill back up. The frequent vomiting and gastric lavage made my already weak body even more fragile. When I opened my eyes, I was in the hospital. An older doctor looked at my chart, then at me, scolding, "Don't you know how to take care of your body? You're 3 months pregnant and you dare engage in such intense activity? What kind of wife are you?"
I'm sorry,
I thought I could never get pregnant. Close to zero doesn't mean zero. I apologized instinctively. Then the realization hit me. I was actually pregnant. Baby, my baby, Daddy will protect you. Tears welled up. I touched my flat stomach. The doctor saw my intense reaction, sighed, and instructed, "The child is important, but you are more important. The first trimester is dangerous. You need to keep your mood stable. Any intense emotional fluctuation could lead to a miscarriage. Okay, notify the father. Share the joy with the family. No, don't tell them. If Charles knew, he definitely wouldn't let me keep the baby. This was my child. I wouldn't let anyone hurt him. Doctor, please keep this a secret for me." At my pleading, the doctor agreed to hide the pregnancy. I didn't dare stay at the hospital long. Clutching the ultrasound report, I hurried back to the villa. The empty house was suddenly filled with luggage and servants. Charles was helping Joseph out of the car, looking at him tenderly as he told him to move into the second floor. Seth, you're back. Joseph noticed me early on. When I followed them into the master bedroom, he pretended to greet me. Charles's face went cold. Joseph is living here from now on. Pack your things. Pack what? Charles gestured for Joseph to enter the room. Joseph stays with me. You're moving out. I froze. But this is our room. We were married. This was our home. Charles's brow furrowed tighter. Seeing my distress, he said frankly, Joseph has depression. He needs someone watching him 24/7. I need care too. Charles, I have a baby. We have a baby. In that moment, I wanted to tell him the truth so badly. But telling him would only invite more extreme hatred. I hid my sadness and silently picked up the things that had been thrown out. Joseph sat on the edge of the bed, a provocative smirk rising on his exquisite, pale face. He mouthed silently at me, "You deserve it." Charles was so focused on Joseph he didn't even notice I moved out of the villa entirely, renting a small apartment for myself. I used my savings to buy prenatal supplies, planning to stay hidden until the baby was stable. But I underestimated the Harrison family's reach. They had a tracker on my phone. The pregnancy was exposed. That day, I was still sleeping when Charles banged furiously on the door. I hesitated to open it. Seth, don't test my patience. Through the peephole, I saw Charles tear off his tie in agitation and wrap it around his right hand, preparing to break the door down. Veins popped on his neck and arms. If that fist landed on me, the baby would be hurt. Seth, are you a child? I compromised and opened the door, only to be met with a hand choking me. Oxygen was cut off from my chest. I slapped at his right hand, trying to make him let go, but the size difference made all my struggles futile. My face flushed red. I glared at him unwillingly. Yes, I told on you, but who asked the family to listen to me? You. Charles's pupils constricted. He raised a fist the size of a sandbag. I panicked and covered my head, screaming, "If you dare hit me, I'll tell the family to destroy Joseph." Joseph was his trigger and his weakness. Charles deflated instantly. He gritted his teeth at me, furious but powerless. After a long silence, he roughly threw me into the car. "You're coming back with me." "I'm not going back." "Charles, let me out. If I went back, everything would be exposed." Couldn't go back. I struggled, banging desperately on the window. "It's not up to you." Charles injected a sedative into my arm. My vision went black and I passed out. Charles put me under house arrest in a guest room. He installed a one-way mirror specifically so I could see clearly into the master bedroom. I stood in front of the glass, watching Joseph wrap his arms around Charles's neck, casting a contemptuous look in my direction. "Charles, Seth won't be mad, will he?" He lay on the bed, accepting Charles's affection, smiling as he looked right at me. Charles went silent for a moment, then suddenly pulled away. "Charles, where are you going?" Joseph was confused by the abrupt stop. The next second, my door opened. Charles, face dark, threw me onto the bed without a word and roughly tore off my clothes. The more I resisted, the more violent he became. "Stop acting holy. Your pheromones are so thick a dog could smell them." He pinned my hands and bit down on my gland, biting with the intent to punish and torture, but refusing to inject any pheromones to soothe me. He knew my heat had started, so he was deliberately releasing intense pheromones to torture me without release. A pregnant omega is sensitive to pheromones and has high needs. I couldn't control my body's response to his humiliation, which only made him angrier. He pinned me against the wall, bit down viciously on my gland, and injected pheromones like a madman. My restless body was finally soothed and quieted down. He looked down at me from above, sneering. "Seth, only I can satisfy you. With 100% compatibility, pheromones will give everything to serve the partner when they need it most." The lingering scent of our entanglement hung heavy in the air. I struggled to crawl up, sobbing uncontrollably. "Mom, Dad, Sis, what am I going to do?" When I walked out of the bathroom, Charles was standing at the door, his cold eyes staring straight at me, as if trying to see through me. I shrank back, quickly lowering my head. "Are you pregnant?" My footsteps paused. I was so nervous my breathing stopped. I had been so careful. Even Joseph hadn't noticed. Charles definitely couldn't have noticed. I steadied my voice and said calmly, "No." Charles scoffed. "I thought so. You're a mutated Omega. How could you possibly carry my child? Only Joseph can carry my child." I opened my mouth, but my throat felt bitter and dry. The one who isn't loved is worth less than dirt. 3 days later, I went out with the Harrison family for a checkup. Once they confirmed the baby was safe, they gave me the evidence I needed, but only a portion, not enough to prove my parents' innocence. I will protect the child. Leaving that promise, I threw the rest of the prenatal pills into the trash can. I looked up and ran right into Joseph's malicious smile. My blood ran cold. "Seth, Charles said he's picking me up for a movie. Wanna come along?" Joseph walked toward me, beaming. I gripped my bag tight, feigning calm, and shook my head. "No thanks, I have things to do." "What does a house husband have to do? Unless you're pregnant?" Joseph stepped quickly to block me, his gaze dropping meaningfully to the slight curve of my lower abdomen. My face went pale instantly. I was about to explain when Charles arrived. "Joseph, he couldn't possibly be pregnant, and he isn't worthy of being pregnant." Charles took Joseph's hand naturally and affectionately pinched his cheek. "Not eating properly again. I can't eat when you're not there." Joseph leaned into Charles's arms like a fragile bird, tracing circles on his chest, whining, "You always complain that I'm clingy, but that's just how I am. If you don't like it, don't come find me." I wasn't complaining. "Don't be mad. I'm taking you to the movies." Charles scolded him gently, then turned to see me standing there unresponsive. His brow twitched. "Let's go together." "No need." Charles frowned, his tone leaving no room for argument. "I don't want people to misunderstand. But people already misunderstand. Everyone thinks Joseph is your wife." My eyes reddened involuntarily. I looked at him, my nose stinging. With Charles's support, Joseph's status had skyrocketed. He'd gone from a nobody to a B-list star. Charles openly displayed his affection, and the carefully curated trending topics all showed that they were the legitimate couple. "Seth, don't make me angry." I didn't move. Under Joseph's persuasion, Charles's tone softened slightly. From the start of the movie, my stomach throbbed with a dull ache. By the time Joseph suggested we go shopping afterward, it turned into sharp cramps, and my pheromones began to leak out of control. My heat wasn't over yet. Charles had just injected enough pheromones 3 days ago to suppress it temporarily. Cold sweat layered on my forehead. Joseph was the first to notice. Omegas have a natural intuition. They can spot abnormalities in their own kind immediately. He smiled at me thoughtfully. "Charles, Seth doesn't seem well. Let's go back." As he spoke, he used his own pheromones to mask mine. My scent was faint, never very strong even in heat. Even though Joseph wasn't in heat, his scent easily overpowered mine. Charles looked displeased. "If he's sick, he should go to the hospital." "I'm not a doctor. I'll go by myself." I put down the things I was holding and stumbled toward the exit. Joseph feigned worry. "Charles, let's drive Seth to the hospital. If we leave him like this, he might collapse." Charles pressed his lips together, silent, but his gaze was terrifyingly cold. At the entrance, just as I was about to black out, Charles appeared. He reached out to support me, but I slapped his hand away. "Don't touch me." A pregnant Omega is repulsed by other Omegas, especially the one hogging their alpha. The scent on him made me dizzy and nauseous. Charles froze, then suddenly grabbed my wrist, forcing me to look at him. "Seth, you're getting bold. You dare reject me." I shook him off with all my strength, looking at him with hostility for the first time. "Let me go." In the handful of times I talked back to him, this was the 5th. I remembered the previous 4, each time. He had been like a cruel beast, devouring me in bed. I stared at him. His expression shifted from shock to embarrassment, then to rage. "Seth, don't force me to do it right here." He forcibly pulled me into his arms. To outsiders, it looked like a loving embrace. Only I knew the grinding teeth and anger behind the words. He whispered in my ear. "An alpha's suppression of an Omega is absolute." Right now, he was using pheromones to control me. I had no ability to resist. For the sake of the baby quieting down, I submitted, desperately absorbing his scent. Charles let go, satisfied. His eyes filled with the relief of successful revenge. He liked humiliating me. Watching me bow my head to him, submissive and cautious. You're taking care of Joseph tonight. Why? I asked instinctively, but his interrogating gaze forced me to look down. I can't take care of him. Seth, you don't have the right to disobey me. The world spun as I was dragged into the car. Tiny, suffocating kisses rained down. The space was too cramped for big movements, but Charles managed his dirty work just fine. I bit his shoulder, refusing to let go even when I tasted blood. Surprisingly, he didn't stop me. Instead, he studied me with interest, then smiled meaningfully. I never realized you were so good at tormenting people. A chill ran down my spine. The next moment I was flipped over. Charles covered my back, punishing me with his anger. Halfway through, he lifted my chin, forcing me to watch the passers-by outside the window, constantly hurling verbal abuse. With a seductive expression like that, everyone should get a good look. He laughed as he insulted me. When I closed my eyes, he pried them open. People were walking by outside, but only Joseph stood directly in front of us. His face was ashen, the rage in his eyes looking ready to tear me apart. I closed my eyes in pain and shot back. Don't you love him? Charles froze, then ground his teeth against my gland. This has nothing to do with you. Can you stand doing this with someone else while the person you love watches? You hate me so much, yet you still sleep with me. Admit it, you like me, don't you? Shut up. I had hit a nerve. He hated having anything to do with me because I was the one who broke the pride of a powerful CEO, the one who tied down an arrogant golden boy. My phrase "you like me" was as damaging as a public slap in the face. You just like me. I struggled to push him away. As I was putting on my clothes to leave, he suddenly snapped, dragged Joseph into the car, tore off his clothes, and took him right in front of me. Joseph understood quickly and did everything to satisfy Charles. Watching them, my stomach churned. I covered my mouth and nose and fled in disgrace. If you can drive Joseph away, your family will be released immediately. In the Harrison family car, a secret file was handed to me. Before I could take it, they pulled it back. I touched my slightly swelling abdomen, hesitating. Soon, my belly would be obvious. Joseph would definitely find out, and he would spare no effort to make me miscarry. But without this file, my parents and sister would suffer in prison indefinitely. I'll have people protect the child. The person clearly saw my hesitation and guaranteed the baby's safety. I accept. To get rid of Joseph quickly, I planned day and night, finally choosing the most dangerous but most likely to succeed plan. Joseph is having an episode. Go take care of him. Charles gave the order arrogantly. I obeyed and pushed open the master bedroom door. The room had been remodeled to Joseph's taste. Joseph was lying in bed, looking rosy-cheeked. His gaze instantly dropped to my stomach. You really are pregnant. I paused slightly, finding a chair to sit down. When did you find out? When Charles got suspicious. So it was exposed back then. I feigned calm. And? I figure you don't want to lose the baby. If the child were mine, he could have a happy family. Joseph's eyes suddenly gleamed. I frowned hard. He changed his expression again, looking at his own stomach with pure affection. Seth, how about a deal? You want to fake a pregnancy and steal my child? I stood up and backed away. Since I entered, Joseph's behavior had been off. Those usually watery doe eyes were now filled with a dark possessiveness. If Charles wasn't so obsessed with having an heir, I wouldn't want to touch you. It is your kid. After all, every drop of blood in him disgusts me. Joseph shrugged. If I tell Charles the truth, you'll definitely miscarry. But if you give him to me, I can overlook the past and take good care of him. The child is mine. Seth, don't do this the hard way. I walked faster, but I didn't realize the door had been locked. Joseph picked up a syringe and advanced on me step by step. Seth, you have no choice, he shouted viciously. I banged on the door with all my might. Just as the needle was coming down, the door was pushed open. Charles had heard the noise and rushed back. But what he saw was Joseph collapsing on the floor, covered in blood. Charles, save me. Seth is trying to cut out my gland. He clutched his bleeding neck, tears flowing instantly. Seth, I truly love Charles. If you hate me, I'll leave. But why did you have to dig out my gland? Is it because you can't conceive, so you have to destroy me too? What did I ever do to you? Joseph wept blood with every word. I stood frozen. By the time I snapped out of it, Charles had already picked Joseph up, glaring at me with hatred. I grabbed the corner of his shirt, begging humbly, "Charles, I didn't cut his gland. I really didn't touch him. You have to believe me. Let go. Charles, believe me. I'm not that kind of person. Wait for the lawyer's letter." I was thrown off. His silhouette was cold and final. "Charles, why won't you believe me? I really didn't do it." Joseph was saved, but his gland was damaged. He could never conceive. The day I went to see him, his small face was pale. He asked me with a mix of injury and indignation, "Are you satisfied? Now I'm a useless waste just like you." He acted so well. Even I almost believed him. I clenched my fingers and asked, "Joseph, why did you frame me? Seth, how did I ever wrong you for you to hurt me like this? Charles and I are truly in love. Why can't you just let us be?" Joseph let out a shrill scream, his red eyes full of grief. "Joseph!" Charles rushed in from outside, knocking me aside to pull Joseph into his arms, comforting him softly. "Joseph, don't be scared. I'm here. Charles, you're finally back. Our baby. We'll never have a baby." Joseph threw himself into Charles's arms, sobbing uncontrollably. "How could there be no baby? Charles loves you so much. He'll find a way to get you pregnant." I touched my own stomach, forcing a bitter smile. "Baby, Daddy is sorry. Charles, Seth, Neil." My words were cut off. Charles stared at me with sinister eyes, leaving no room for argument. "Kneel and apologize to Joseph." My breath hitched. I still held onto a shred of hope. "If I say I didn't cut his gland, that he staged the whole thing, would you still make me kneel? Joseph's life is worth more than yours. Is he that important to you? More important than you? Did he ever save your life? That's not for you to ask." Charles completely lost his patience. He called the bodyguards. They grabbed my shoulders, and with a thud, I was kneeling in front of him. The sudden impact sent a cramp through my abdomen. My forehead broke out in sweat from the pain, but I gritted my teeth and stayed silent. But Joseph already knew I was pregnant. He wouldn't let this child survive. I saw a flash of malice in the corner of his eye, but when he spoke, his voice was weak and breathless.
"Charles, I'm tired."
"Let him go." Charles waved his hand. He didn't let me go. Instead, he made me kneel in the hallway, so everyone passing by would know my crimes. Condemnation washed over me like a tide. I wanted to struggle, but the more I struggled, the deeper I sank. The sky went from light to dark. The cold autumn wind pierced through everything. I was shivering. The baby seemed to sense my distress and started to hurt. Trembling, I begged Charles for help. "Charles, I know I was wrong. Please forgive me. Charles, I know I was wrong. I hadn't had a drop of water all day. My throat was so dry I couldn't speak." Inside the closed hospital room, Charles and Joseph were wrapped in tenderness. "Charles, I know I was wrong. Please forgive me." The cramps in my stomach were getting worse. If this kept up, the baby would be gone. I pushed against the floor, but after kneeling for a day and a night, I had no strength. I managed to crawl up with great difficulty, only for the bodyguards to force me back down. "My baby, get a doctor. I'm losing my baby." The moment I hit the floor, a warm flow gushed between my legs. The smell of blood rushed to my head. I screamed in panic, "Charles, save our child." No matter how hysterically I shouted, Charles didn't react. A bodyguard stuffed a tie into my mouth. "Even if you scream your throat raw, Mr. Harrison won't come out." They pushed me down. I curled up, trying to suppress the downward pull in my abdomen. The metallic sweetness rising in my throat choked off my last breath. I couldn't say a word. Charles was disturbed by the noise. He walked over irritably, cursing as he came. "Seth, how long are you going to keep up this drama? You know better than anyone that you can't get pregnant." Seeing his cold face, I completely broke down, screaming with a heart-wrenching roar. "Charles Harrison, I hate you. If I died, would it all be over? Mom, Dad, Sis, are you angry? Couldn't save you. Mom, Dad, Sis, my baby is gone. The baby is gone. My baby is gone." I woke with a start. Charles sat by the bed, looking haggard. Seeing me wake, he hurriedly called for the doctor. "Seth, don't be scared. The doctor is coming." Seth, how ironic. I studied his expression closely. How defeated, how guilty he looked. But what use was it? My baby was gone. I could never be pregnant again. Are you satisfied now? I pulled my hand from his tight grip, my face like grayish. No, Seth, listen to me. He started to speak in a panic. His bloodshot eyes filled only with pain. Seeing his panicked expression, I experienced Joseph's joy for the first time. So this is what it feels like. I muttered to myself, my gaze falling on my flat stomach. I could no longer feel the pulse of life there. Just yesterday he was responding to me, actively interacting with me. How could it be that in just one day he left his daddy and went away? I closed my eyes, letting tears soak the pillow. The emotions buried at the bottom of my heart turned into an ocean that wouldn't stop flowing. Charles hugged me tightly, heartbroken. Seth, we can have another baby. The Harrison family has the best technology in the world. We will have another child. Seth, believe me, we will have children. Let's get a divorce. I interrupted him, my tone final. I'll let you go and you let me go. From now on, we go our separate ways. No, Seth, I don't want a divorce. You're the one I've been looking for. Seth, I was wrong about you. Charles was stunned, speechless. After a long while, he gripped my hands, tears falling like rain. The question that had trapped me for 3 years finally had an answer. But it didn't matter anymore. Who saved him, who loved him, none of it mattered anymore. You weren't wrong about me. Seth. He suddenly looked up, hope igniting in his eyes. I laughed coldly, personally extinguishing his last glimmer of hope. You never believed me. When Joseph faked depression, you didn't dig deeper. You just saw his fragile side and believed him. When Joseph stole my identity, you didn't dig deeper. You just heard his side of the story and believed him. When Joseph framed me for cutting his gland, you didn't even investigate. You just easily believed his lies. Seth, stop saying it. Please stop. Charles looked pained, unwilling to face his mistakes. But I wanted him to be in pain. I wanted him to live in pain for the rest of his life. If you knew you were wrong, you would have realized early on that Joseph's depression was fake, his identity was fake, and the gland attack was fake. But you didn't. From start to finish, you shielded him, favored him, and helped him kill your own child with your own hands. Charles Harrison, you are a murderer. My marriage to Charles had reached its absolute end. The day I was discharged, the Harrison family sent a dozen luxury cars to pick me up. The culprit, Joseph, was escorted by police and forced to kneel in front of me, apologizing publicly. Seth, what right do you have to own Charles? He was still unrepentant, insulting me in front of everyone. Charles kicked him hard. You don't get to point fingers at Seth. Joseph spat out a mouthful of blood and grinned viciously. Charles, you think you have the right to lecture me? If it weren't for you, your kid might be calling you dad right now. But he's dead. You killed him. You will never have children in this lifetime. Take him away. Follow the law to the letter. No leniency. Charles slapped him and had him dragged off coldly. Seth, come home with me. Okay? Can we start over? I asked the doctor. As long as we truly love each other with 100% pheromone compatibility, we can still have children. Seth, come home with me. He reached out to me, begging humbly. I had never seen him look so pathetic. If it were before, I might have agreed without hesitation. But now, whenever I close my eyes, I see my baby's face. I hear my baby's voice. If I really forgave him, I would be the truly pathetic one. Where is my family? Mom, Dad, and your sister have all been released. They're at the house. Let's go back together. Hearing my words, he showed a look of surprise, excited yet cautious about taking me home. On the way, his gaze was glued to me. I had seen that look 15 years ago. We were both children then, understanding nothing of adult romance. We only felt that giving for the other person was an incredibly happy thing. So when he was attacked, I threw myself in front of the knife for him. The price was the damage to my gland. We were sent to the hospital at the same time. That separation at the hallway junction turned out to be a foreshadowing that we would eventually drift apart. When I woke up from surgery, there was no news of him. Not from the doctors, my parents, or even the neighbors. No one had seen him. It was like he evaporated, completely gone from my world. Until 15 years later, when my family was framed and my parents and sister were thrown in jail. Desperate, I was found by the Harrison family. Under their orchestration, the 100% compatibility with Charles was discovered. That was when I learned that Charles was a wealthy CEO, and he had completely lost his childhood memories. The massive wealth gap kept my mouth shut. I didn't dare say I had saved him, but I couldn't escape the Harrison family's eyes. Using pheromones as the excuse, they forced Charles to marry me. The night before the wedding, Charles suddenly fell in love with Joseph and wanted to call it off at all costs. In the end, the family used drugs to induce his rut early, forcing him to marry me. A wrong beginning destined a wrong ending. Charles and we just weren't meant to be. After the divorce, my parents, my sister, and I emigrated. The medical technology here is advanced. They removed the permanent mark for me. From now on, I won't be affected by Charles's pheromones. After the procedure, I made a separate request to the doctor to remove my gland entirely. The doctor asked me in shock, the survival rate for an omega gland removal is only 60%, and you will never be able to conceive again. Are you sure? I closed my eyes, calm and determined. I'm sure. I want to become an ordinary person and live an ordinary life. The surgery went smoothly. The open window let in the scent of fresh flowers. I smiled. Sis, so this is what the ordinary world feels like.